The Illustrated Man by Bradbury. It was a warm afternoon in early September when I first met the Illustrated Man. Walking along an asphalt road, I was on the final leg of a 2 weeks walking tour of Wisconsin. Late in the afternoon I stopped, ate some pork, beans, and a donut. I was preparing to stretch out and read when the Illustrated Man walked over the hill and stood for a moment against the sky. I didn't know he was the Illustrated then. I only knew that he was tall and once well-muscled, but now, for some reason, going to fat. I recall that his arms were long and his hands thick, but that his face was like a child set upon a massive body. He seemed only to sense my presence, for he didn't look directly at me when he spoke his first words. "Do you know where I can find a job?" "I'm afraid not," I said. "I haven't had a job that's lasted in 40 years, he said. Though it was a hot late afternoon, he wore his wool shirt, buttoned tight about his neck. His sleeves were rolled and buttoned down over thick wrists. Perspiration was streaming from his face, yet he made no move to open his shirt. "Well," he said at last, "this is a good place as any to spend the night. Do you mind company? I have some extra food you'd be welcome to." I said. He sat down heavily, grunting. "You'll be sorry you asked me to stay," he said. "Everyone always is. That's why I'm walking. Here it is, early September, the cream of the Labor Day carnival season. I should be making money hand over fist at any small town sideshow celebration, but here I am with no prospects." He took off an immense shoe and peered at it closely. "I usually keep a job about 10 days. Then something happens and they fire me, but now every carnival in America won't touch me with a 10-foot pole. What seems to be the trouble?" I asked. For answer, he unbuttoned his tight collar slowly. With his eyes shut, he pulled a slow hand to the task of unbuttoning his shirt all the way down. He slipped his fingers in to feel his chest. "Funny," he said, eyes still shut. "You can't feel them, but they're there. I always hope that someday I'll look and they'll be gone. I walk in the sun for hours on the hottest days, baking, and hope that my sweat will wash them off. The sun will cook them off, but at the sundown they're still there." He turned his head slightly toward me and exposed his chest. "Are they there now?" After a long while I exhaled. "Yes," I said. "They're still there, the illustrations." "Another reason I keep my collar buttoned up," he said, opening his eyes, "is the children. They follow me along country roads. Everyone wants to see the pictures, and yet nobody wants to see them." He took his shirt off and wadded it in his hands. He was covered with illustrations from blue tattooed ring around his neck to his belt line. "It keeps your eye on going," he said, guessing my thought. "All of me is illustrated. Look." He opened his hand. On his palm was a rose freshly cut with drops of crystal water among the soft pink petals. I put my hand out to touch it, but it was only an illustration. As for the rest of him, I cannot say how I sat and stared, for he was a riot of rockets and fountains and people in such intricate detail and color that you could hear the voices murmuring, small and muted, from the crowds that inhabited his body. When his flesh twitched, the tiny mouths flickered, the tiny green and gold eyes winked, the tiny pink hands gestured. There were yellow meadows and blue rivers, and mountains and stars and suns and planets spread in a milky way across his chest. The people themselves were in 20 or more odd groups upon his arms, shoulders, backs, sides, wrists, as well as on the flat of his stomach. He found them in forests of hair, lurking among a constellation of freckles, or peering from armpit caverns, diamond eyes aglitter. Each seemed intent upon his own activity. Each was a separate gallery portrait. "Why, they're beautiful," I said. "How can I explain about his illustrations? If El Greco had painted miniatures in his prime no bigger than your hand, infinitely detailed with all his sulphurous color, elongation, and anatomy, perhaps he might have used this man's body for his art. The colors burned in 3 dimensions. They were windows looking in upon fiery reality. Here, gathered on one wall, were all the finest scenes in the universe. The man was a walking treasure gallery. This wasn't the work of a cheap carnival tattoo man with 3 colors and whiskey on his breath. This was the accomplishment of a living genius, vibrant, clear, and beautiful." "Oh, yes," said the Illustrated Man. "I'm so proud of my illustrations that I'd like to burn them off. I've tried sanding, paper, acid, a knife." The sun was setting. The moon was already up in the east. Or you see, the illustrated man said, these illustrations predict the future. I said nothing. It's all right in the sun's sight, he went on. I could keep a carnival day job, but at night the pictures move, the pictures change. I must have smiled. How long have you been illustrated? In 1900, when I was 20 years old, and working a carnival, I broke my leg. It laid me up. I had to do something to keep my hand in, so I decided to get tattooed. But who tattooed you? What happened to the artist? She went back to the future, he said. I mean it. She was an old woman in a little house in the middle of Wisconsin, here somewhere not far from this place. A little old witch who looked 1,000 years old one moment and 20 years old the next. But she said she could travel in time. I laughed. Now I know better. How did you happen to meet her? He told me. He had seen her painted sign by the road. Skin illustration instead of tattoo. Artistic, so he had sat all night with her, while her magic needles stung him, wasp stings and delicate bee stings. By morning he looked like a man who had fallen into a 20-color print press and had been squeezed out all bright and picturesque. I've hunted every summer for 50 years, he said, putting his hands out in the air. When I find that I'm witch, I'm going to kill her. The sun was gone. Now the first stars were shining, and the moon had brightened the fields of grass and wheat. Still the illustrated man's pictures glowed like charcoals in the half-light, like scattered rubies and emeralds, with Royalt colors and Picasso colors, the long pressed-out El Greco bodies. So people fire me when my pictures move. They don't like it when violent things happen in my illustrations. Each illustration is a little story. If you watch them in a few minutes, they tell you a tale. In 3 hours of looking, you could see 18 or 20 stories acted right on my body. You could hear voices and think of thoughts. It's all here, just waiting for you to look. But most of all, there's a special spot on my body. He bared his back. See, there's no special design on my right shoulder blade, just a jumble. Yes. When I've been around a person long enough, that spot clouds over and fills in. If I'm with a woman, her picture comes there on my back. In an hour, it shows her whole life. How she'll live, how she'll die, what she'll look like when she's 60. And if it's a man, an hour later, his picture's here on my back. It shows him falling off a cliff or dying under a train, so I'm fired again. All the time he had been talking, his hands had wandered over the illustrations as if to adjust their frames, to brush away dust, the motions of a connoisseur, the art patron. Now he lay back, long and full of the moonlight. It was a warm night. There was no breeze and the air was stifling. We both had our shirts off. And you've never found the old woman? Never. And you think she came from the future? How else would she know these stories painted on me? He shut his eyes tiredly. His voice grew fainter. Sometimes at night I can feel them, the pictures like ants, crawling on my skin. Then I know they're doing what they have to do. I never look at them anymore. I just try to rest. I don't sleep much. Don't you look at them either, I warn you. Turn the other way when you sleep. I lay back a few feet from him. He didn't seem violent, and the pictures were beautiful, otherwise I might have been tempted to get out and away from such babbling. But the illustrations, I let my eyes fill up on them. Any person would go a little mad with such things upon his body. The night was serene. I could hear the illustrated man's breathing in the moonlight. The crickets were stirring gently in the distant ravines. I lay with my body sideways so I could watch the illustrations. Perhaps half an hour passed. Whether the illustrated man slept, I could not tell, but suddenly I heard him whisper, "They're moving, aren't they?" I waited a minute, then I said yes. The pictures were moving, each in its turn, each for a brief minute or two. They were there in the moonlight, with the tiny tinkling dots and the distant sea voices, it seemed. Each little drama was enacted. Whether it took an hour or 3 hours for the dramas to finish, it would be hard to say. I only know that I lay fascinated and did not move, while the stars wheeled in the sky. 18 illustrations, 18 tales. I counted them one by one. Primarily, my eyes focused upon a scene, a large house with 2 people in it. I saw a flight of vultures on a blazing flesh sky. I saw yellow lions. I heard voices. The first illustration quivered and came to life. The Veld. George, I wish you'd look at the nursery. What's wrong with it? I don't know. Well, then, I just want you to look at it, is all. Or call a psychologist in to look at it. What would a psychologist want with a nursery? You know very well what he'd want. His wife paused in the middle of the kitchen and watched the stove, busy humming to itself, making supper for 4. It's just that the nursery is different now than it was. All right, let's have a look. They walked down the hall of their soundproofed Happy Life home, which had cost them $30,000 installed. This house, which clothed and fed and rocked them to sleep and played and sang and was good to them, Their approach sensitized a switch somewhere, and the nursery light flicked on whenever they came within 10 feet of it. Similarly, behind them, in the halls, lights went on and off as they left them behind with a soft automaticity. "Well," said George Hadley. They stood on the thatched floor of the nursery. It was 40 feet across by 40 feet long and 30 feet high. It had cost half again as much as the rest of the house, but nothing's too good for our children, George had said. The nursery was silent. It was empty as a jungle glade at hot high noon. The walls were blank and two-dimensional. Now, as George and Lydia Hadley stood at the center of the room, the walls began to purr and recede into crystalline distance, it seemed, and presently an African veldt appeared. In 3 dimensions, on all sides, in colors reproduced to the final pebble and a bit of straw. The ceiling above them became a deep sky with a hot yellow sun. George Hadley felt the perspiration start on his brow. Let's get out of the sun, he said. This is a little too real, but I don't see anything wrong. Wait a moment, you'll see, said his wife. Now the hidden odorophonics were beginning to blow a wind of odor at the 2 people in the middle of the baked veltland. The hot straw smell of lion grass, the cool green smell of the hidden waterhole, the great rusty smell of animals, the smell of dust like red paprika in the hot air. And now the sounds, the thump of distant antelope feet on a grassy sod, the paper rustling of vultures. A shadow passed through the sky. The shadow flickered on George Hadley's upturned, sweating face. Filthy creatures, he heard his wife say. The vultures. You see, there are lions far over that way. Now they're on their way to the waterhole. They've just been eating, said Lydia. I don't know what. Some animal. George Hadley put his hand up to shield off the burning light from his squinting eyes. A zebra or a baby giraffe, maybe. Are you sure? His wife sounded peculiarly tense. No, it's a little late to be sure, he said, amused. Nothing over there I can see but a clean bone, and the vultures dropping for what's left. Did you hear that scream? She asked. No. About a minute ago? Sorry, no, the lions were coming. And again George Hadley was filled with admiration for the mechanical genius who had conceived this room. A miracle of efficiency selling for an absurdly low price. Every home should have one. Occasionally they frightened you with their clinical accuracy. They startled you, gave you a twinge, but most of the time what fun for everyone. Not only your own son and daughter, but for yourself when you felt like a quick jaunt to a foreign land, a quick change of scenery. Well, here it was. And here were the lions now, 15 feet away, so real, so feverishly and startlingly real, that you could feel the prickling fur on your hand, and your mouth stuffed with the dusty upholstery smell of their heated pelts, and the yellow of them was in your eyes, like the yellow of an exquisite French tapestry, the yellows of lions and summer grass, and the sound of the matted lion lungs exhaling on the silent noontide, and the smell of meat from the patting, dripping mouths. The lions stood looking at George and Lydia Hadley with the terrible green-yellow eyes. "Watch out!" screamed Lydia. The lions came running at them. Lydia bolted and ran. Instinctively, George sprang after her. Outside in the hall, with the door slammed, he was laughing and she was crying, and they both stood appalled at each other's reaction. "George! Lydia! Oh, my dear, poor, sweet Lydia! They almost got us. Walls, Lydia, remember. Crystal walls, that's all they are. Oh, they look real, I must admit. Africa in your parlor. But it's all dimensional, super-reactionary. Super-sensitive color film and mental tape film behind glass screens. It's all odorophonics and sonics, Lydia. Here's my handkerchief. I'm afraid." She came to him and put her body against him and cried steadily. "Did you see? Did you feel? It's too real. Now, Lydia, you've got to tell Wendy and Peter not to read any more on Africa." Of course, he patted her. "Promise? Sure. And lock the nursery for a few days until I get my nerves settled. You know how difficult Peter is about that. When I punished him a month ago by locking the nursery for even a few hours, the tantrum he threw, and Wendy too, they live for the nursery." "It's got to be locked. That's all there is to it." "All right." Reluctantly, he locked the huge door. "You've been working too hard. You need a rest." I don't know, she said, blowing her nose, sitting down in a chair that immediately began to rock and comfort her. "Maybe I don't have enough to do. Maybe I have time to think too much. Why don't we shut the whole house off for a few days and take a vacation?" "You mean you want to fry my eggs for me?" she said. "Yes." She nodded. "And darn my socks?" "Yes." A frantic, watery-eyed nodding. And sweep the house? Yes, yes, oh yes, but I thought that's why we bought this house, so we wouldn't have to do anything. That's just it. I feel like I don't belong here. The house's wife and mother and now nursemaid. Can I compete with an African Veld? Can I give bath and scrub the children as efficiently or quickly as the automatic scrub bath can? I cannot, and it isn't just me, it's you. You've been awfully nervous lately. I suppose I have been smoking too much. You look as if you didn't know what to do with yourself in this house either. You smoke a little more every morning, and you drink a little more every afternoon, and need a little more sedative every night. You're beginning to feel unnecessary too. Am I? He paused and tried to feel into himself to see what was really there. Oh, George, she looked beyond him, at the nursery door. Those lions can't get out of there, can they? He looked at the door and saw it tremble as if something had jumped against it from the other side. Of course not, he said. At dinner they ate alone, for Wendy and Peter were at the special plastic carnival across town and had televised home to say they'd be late, so go ahead eating. So George Hadley, bemused, sat watching the dining room table produce warm dishes of food in its mechanical interior. We forgot the ketchup, he said. Sorry, said a small voice within the table, and ketchup appeared. As for the nursery, thought George Hadley, it wouldn't hurt for the children to be locked out of it a while. Too much of anything isn't good for anyone, and it clearly indicated that the children had been spending a little too much time in Africa. The sun, he could feel it on his on his neck, like a hot pall, and the lions, and the smell of blood. Remarkable how the nursery caught the telepathic emanations from the children's minds and created life to fill their every desire. The children thought lions, and there were lions. The children thought zebras, and there were zebras. Sun, giraffes, death and death. That last. He chewed tastelessly on the meat that the table had cut for him. Death thoughts. They were awfully young, Wendy and Peter, for death thoughts. Or no, you were never too young, really. Long before you knew what death was, you were wishing it on someone else. When you were 2 years old, you were shooting people with cat pistols. But this, the long, hot African veldt, the awful death in the jaws of a lion, and repeated again and again. Where are you going? He didn't answer Lydia. Preoccupied, he let the lights glow softly on ahead of him, extinguished behind him. As he padded to the nursery door, he listened against it. Far away a lion roared. He unlocked the door and opened it. Just before he stepped inside, he heard a faraway scream, and then another roar from the lions, which subsided quickly. He stepped into Africa. How many times in the last year had he opened this door and found Wonderland, Alice the Mock Turtle, or Aladdin and his magical lamp, or Jack Pumpkinhead of Oz, or Dr. Dolittle, or the cow jumping over a very real-appearing moon, all the delightful contraptions of a make-believe world. How often had he seen Pegasus flying in the sky ceiling, or seen fountains of red fireworks, or heard angel voices singing. But now this yellow-hot Africa, this bake oven with the murder and the heat. Perhaps Lydia was right. Perhaps they needed a little vacation from the fantasy, which was growing a bit too real for 10-year-old children. It was all right to exercise one's mind with gymnastic fantasies, but when the lively child mind settled on one pattern, it seemed that at a distance for the past month he had heard lions roaring, smelled their strong odor seeping as far away from his study door. But being busy, he had paid it no attention. George Hadley stood on the African grassland alone. The lions looked up from their feeding, watching him. The only flaw to this illusion was the open door through which he could see his wife far down the dark hall like a framed picture, eating her dinner abstractedly. Go away, he said to the lions. They did not go. He knew the principle of the room exactly. You sent out your thoughts. Whatever you thought would appear. Let's have Aladdin and his lamp, he snapped. The Veltland remained. The lions remained. Come on, room, I demand Aladdin, he said. Nothing happened. The lions mumbled in their baked pelts. Aladdin. He went back to dinner. The full room's out of order, he said. It won't respond. Or what? Or it can't respond, said Lydia, because the children have thought about Africa and lions and killing so many days that the room's in a rut. Could be. Or Peter set it to remain that way. Set it? He may have gotten to the machinery and fixed something. Peter doesn't know machinery. He's a wise one for 10. That IQ of his, nevertheless. Hello, Mom. Hello, Dad. The Hadleys turned. Wendy and Peter were coming in the front door. Cheeks like peppermint candy, eyes bright blue like gate marbles, a smell of ozone on their jumpers from their trip in the helicopter. You're just in time for supper, said both parents. We're full of strawberry ice cream and hot dogs, said the children, holding hands, but we'll sit and watch. Yes, come and tell us about the nursery, said George Hadley. The brother and sister blinked at him and stared at each other. Nursery? All about Africa and everything, said the father with false joviality. I don't understand, said Peter. Your mother and I were just traveling through Africa with rod and reel, Tom Swift and his electric lion, said George Hadley. There's no Africa in the nursery, said Peter simply. Oh, come now, Peter, we know better. I don't remember any Africa, said Peter to Wendy. Do you? No. Run, see, and come tell, she obeyed. Wendy, come back here, said George Hadley, but she was gone. The house lights followed her like a flock of fireflies. Too late, he realized he had forgotten to lock the nursery door after his last inspection. Wendy'll look and come tell us, said Peter. She doesn't have to tell me. I've seen it. I'm sure you're mistaken, Father. I'm not, Peter. Come along now. But Wendy was back. It's not Africa, she said breathlessly. We'll see about this, said George Hadley. And they all walked down the hall together and opened the nursery door. There was a green, lovely forest, a lovely river, a purple mountain, high voices singing, and Rima, lovely and mysterious, lurking in the trees, and colorful flights of butterflies like animated bouquets, lingering in her long hair. The African veltland was gone. The lions were gone. Only Rima was here now, singing a song so beautiful that it brought tears to your eyes. George Hadley looked in at the changed scene. Go to bed, he said to the children. They opened their mouths. You heard me, he said. They went off to the air closet, where a wind sucked them like brown leaves up the flue to their slumber rooms. George Hadley walked through the singing glade and picked up something that lay in the corner near where the lions had been. He walked slowly back to his wife. What is that? She asked. An old wallet of mine, he said. He showed it to her. The smell of hot grass was on it, and the smell of a lion. There were drops of saliva on it. It had been chewed, and there were blood smears on both sides. He closed the nursery door and locked it tight. In the middle of the night he was still awake, and he knew his wife was awake. Do you think Wendy changed it? She said at last in the dark room. Of course. Made it from veldt into a forest and put Rima there instead of lions? Yes. Why? I don't know, but it's staying locked until I find out. How did your wallet get there? I don't know anything, he said, except that I'm beginning to be sorry that we bought that room for the children. If children are neurotic at all, a room like that, it's supposed to help them work out their neurosis in a helpful way. I'm starting to wonder, he stared at the ceiling. You've given the children everything they ever wanted. Is this our reward? Secrecy? Disobedience? Who was it said children are carpets? They should be stepped on occasionally. We've never lifted a hand. They're insufferable. Let's admit it. They come and go when they like. They treat us as if we were offspring. They're spoiled and we're spoiled. They've been acting funny ever since you forbade them to take the rocket to New York a few months ago. They're not old enough to do that alone, I explained. Nevertheless, I've noticed they've been decidedly cool toward us since. I think I'll have David McLean come tomorrow morning and have a look at Africa. But it's not Africa now. It's Green Mansion's country and Rima. I have a feeling it'll be Africa again before then. A moment later they heard the screams. Two people screaming from downstairs, and then a roar of lions. Wendy and Peter aren't in their rooms, said their wife. He lay in his bed with his beating heart. No, he said, they've broken into the nursery. Those screams, they sound familiar. Do they? Yes, awfully. And although their beds tried very hard, the two adults couldn't be rocked to sleep for another hour. A smell of cats was in the night air. Father, said Peter. Yes. Peter looked at his shoes. He never looked at his father anymore, not at his mother. You aren't going to lock up the nursery for good, are you? That all depends. On what? Snapped Peter. On you and your sister, if you intersperse this Africa with a little variety. Oh, Sweden perhaps, or Denmark, or China. I thought we were free to play as we wished. You are, within reasonable bounds. What's wrong with Africa, Father? Oh, so now you admit you have been conjuring up Africa, do you? I wouldn't want the nursery locked up, said Peter coldly. Ever. Matter of fact, we're thinking of turning a whole house off for a month. Live sort of carefree, one-for-all existence. That sounds dreadful. Would I have to tie my own shoes instead of letting the shoe tire do it, and brush my own teeth, and comb my hair, and give myself a bath? It would be fun for a change, don't you think? No, it would be horrid. I didn't like it when you took out the picture painter last month. That's because I wanted you to learn to paint all by yourself, son. I don't want to do anything but look and listen and smell. What else is there to do? All right, go play in Africa. Will you shut off the house sometime soon? We're considering it. I don't think you'd better consider it any more, Father. I won't have any threats from my son. Very well, and Peter strolled off to the nursery. Am I on time? Said David McLean. Breakfast? Asked George Hadley. Thanks, had some. What's the trouble? David, you're a psychologist. I should hope so. Well, then have a look at our nursery. You saw it a year ago when you dropped by. Did you notice anything peculiar about it then? Can't say I did. The usual violence is a tendency towards slight paranoia here or there. Usual in children, because I feel persecuted by parents constantly. But oh, really nothing. They walked down the hall. I locked the nursery up, explained the father, and the children broke back into it during the night. I let them stay so they could form the patterns for you to see. There was a terrible screaming from the nursery. There it is, said George Hadley. See what you make of it. They walked in on the children without rapping. The screams had faded. The lions were feeding. Run outside a moment, children, said George Hadley. No, don't change the mental combination. Leave the walls as they are. Get. When the children had gone, the two men stood, studying the lions, clustered at a distance, eating with great relish whatever it was they had caught. I wish I knew what it was, said George Hadley. Sometimes I can almost see. Do you think I brought high-powered binoculars here? And David McLean laughed hardly. He turned to study all four walls. How long has this been going on? A little over a month. It certainly doesn't feel good. I want facts, not feelings. My dear George, a psychologist never saw a fact in his life. He only hears about feelings, vague things. This doesn't feel good, I tell you. Trust my hunches and my instincts. I have a nose for something bad. This is very bad. My advice to you is to have the whole darn room torn down and your children brought to me every day during the next year for treatment. Is it that bad? I'm afraid so. One of the original uses of the nurseries was so that we could study the patterns left on the walls by the child's mind, study at our leisure, and help the child. In this case, however, the room has become a channel toward destructive thoughts instead of a release away from them. Didn't you sense this before? I sensed only that you had spoiled your children more than most, and now you're letting them down in some way. What way? I wouldn't let them go to New York. What else? I've taken a few machines from the house and threatened them a month ago with closing up the nursery unless they did their homework. I did close it for a few days to show I'm at business. Uh-huh. Does that mean anything? Everything. Where before they had a Santa Claus, now they have a Scrooge. Children prefer Santas. You've let this room and this house replace you and your wife and your children's affections. This room is their mother and father, far more important in their lives than their real parents. And now you come along and want to shut it off? No wonder there's hatred here. You can feel it coming out of the sky. Feel that sun, George. You have to change your life. Like too many others, you built it around creature comforts. Why, you'd starve tomorrow if something went wrong with your kitchen. You wouldn't know how to tap an egg. Nevertheless, turn everything off. Start new. It'll take time, but we'll make good children out of a bad in a year. Wait and see. But won't the shock be too much for the children, shutting the room up abruptly for good? I don't want them going any deeper into this, that's all. The lions were finished with their red feast. The lions were standing on the edge of the clearing watching the two men. Now I'm feeling persecuted, said McLean. Let's get out of here. I never have cared for these darned rooms. Make me nervous. The lions look real, don't they? Said George Hadley. I don't suppose there's any way, what? That they could become real? Not that I know. Some flaw in the machinery, a tampering or something? No. They went to the door. I don't imagine the rooms will like being turned off, said the father. Nothing ever likes to die, even a room. I wonder if it hates me for wanting to switch it off. Paranoia is sick around here today, said David McLean. You can follow it like a spore. Hello. He bent and picked up a bloody scarf. This yours? No, George Hadley's face was rigid. It belongs to Lydia. They went to the fuse box together and threw the switch and killed the nursery. The two children were in hysterics. They screamed and pranced and threw things. They yelled and sobbed and swore and jumped at the furniture. You can't do that to the nursery. You can't. Now, children. The children flung themselves onto a couch weeping. George, said Lydia Hadley, turn on the nursery just for a few moments. You can't be so abrupt. No, you can't be so cruel. Lydia, it's off. It stays off. And the whole darn house dies as of here and now. The more I see of the mess we put ourselves in, the more it sickens me. You've been contemplating our mechanical electronic navels for too long. My God, how we need a breath of honest air. And he marched about the house, turning off the voice clocks, the stoves, the heaters, the shoe shiners, the shoelacers, and the body scrubbers, and swabbers, and massagers, and every other machine he could put his hand to. The house was full of dead bodies, it seemed. It felt like a mechanical cemetery. So silent, none of the humming, hidden energy of machines waiting to function at the tap of a button. Don't let them do it, wailed Peter at the ceiling, as if he was talking to the house, the nursery. Don't let Father kill everything. He turned to his father. Oh, I hate you. Insults won't get you anywhere. I wish you were dead. We were for a long while. Now we're going to really start living. Instead of being handled and massaged, we're going to live. Wendy was still crying, and Peter joined her again. Just a moment, just another moment of nursery, they wailed. Oh, George, said the wife, it can't hurt. All right, if you'll only just shut up 1 minute, mind you, and then off forever. Daddy, 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 sang the children, smiling with wet faces. And then we're going on a vacation. David McLean is coming back in half an hour to help us move out and get to the airport. I'm going to dress. You turn the nursery on for a minute, Lydia. Just a minute, mind you. And the three of them went babbling off while he let himself be vacuumed upstairs through the air and flew, and set about dressing himself. A minute later, Lydia appeared. I'll be glad when we get away, she sighed. Did you leave them in the nursery? I wanted to dress too. Oh, that horrid Africa. What can they see in it? Well, in 5 minutes we'll be on our way to Iowa. Lord, how we ever get in this house. What prompted us to buy a nightmare? Pride money, foolishness. I think we'd better get downstairs before those kids get engrossed in those darn beasts again. Just then they heard the children calling, Daddy, Mommy, come quick, quick. They went downstairs and the air flew. ran down the hall. The children were nowhere in sight. Wendy? Peter? They ran into the nursery. The Veltland was empty save for the lions waiting, looking at them. Peter? Wendy? The door slammed. Wendy! Peter! George Hadley and his wife whirled and ran back to the door. Open the door! Cried George Hadley, trying the knob. Why, they've locked it from the outside. Peter! He beat it at the door. Open up! He heard Peter's voice outside against the door. Don't let them switch off the nursery and the house, he was saying. Mr. and Miss George Hadley beat at the door. Now don't be ridiculous, children. It's time to go. Mr. McLean will be here in a minute, and then they heard the sounds, the lions on the three sides of them, and the yellow Velt glass padding through the dry straw, rumbling and roaring in their throats. The lions. Mr. Hadley looked at his wife, and they turned, and looked back at the beasts, edging slowly forward, crouching, tails stiff. Mr. and Miss Hadley screamed, and suddenly they realized why those other screams had sounded familiar. Well, here I am, said David McLean in the nursery doorway. Oh, hello, he stared at the two children seated in the center of the open glade, eating a little picnic lunch. Beyond them was the waterhole in the yellow Veltland. Above was the hot sun. He began to perspire. Where are your father and mother? The children looked up and smiled. Oh, they'll be here directly. Good, we must get going. At a distance, Mr. McLean saw the lions fighting and clawing and then quieting down to feed in silence under the shady trees. He squinted at the lions with his hand up to his eyes. Now the lions were done feeding. They moved to the waterhole to drink. A shadow flickered over Mr. McLean's hot face. Many shadows flickered. The vultures were dropping down the blazing sky. A cup of tea? Asked Wendy in the silence. The illustrated man shifted in his sleep. He turned, and each time he turned another picture came to view, coloring his back, his arm, his wrist. He flung a hand over the dry night grass. The fingers uncurled, and there upon his palm another illustration stirred to life. He twisted it. On his chest was an empty space of stars and blackness, deep, deep, and something moving along those stars, something falling in the blackness, falling while I watched. Kaleidoscope. The first concussion cut the rocket at the side with a giant can opener. The men were thrown into space like a dozen wriggling silverfish. They were scattered into a dark sea, and the ship in a million pieces went on, a meteor swarm, seeking a lost sun. Barkley, Barkley, where are you? The sound of voices coddling like lost children on a cold night. Wood, Wood, Captain. Hollis, Hollis, this is Stone. Stone, this is Hollis, where are you? I don't know, how can I? Which way is up? I'm falling. Good God, I'm falling. They fell as pebbles fall down wells. They were scattered as jackstones, as scattered from gigantic throw. And now instead of men, there were only voices, all kinds of voices, disembodied and impassioned, in varying degrees of terror and resignation. We're going away from each other. This was true. Hollis, swinging head over heels, knew this was true. He knew it with a vague acceptance. They were parting to go their separate ways, and nothing could bring them back. They were waiting their sealed-tight spacesuits with the glass tubes over the pale faces, but they hadn't had time to lock their force units. With them, they could be small lifeboats in space, saving themselves, saving others, collecting together, finding each other until they were an island of men in some plan. But without the force units snapped to their shoulders, they were meteors, senseless, each going on separate and irrevocable fate. A period of perhaps 10 minutes elapsed while the first terror died, and a metallic calm took its place. Space began to weave in its strange voices in and out on a great dark loom, crossing, recrossing, making a final pattern. Stone to Hollis, how long can we talk by phone? It depends on how fast you're going your way, and I'm going mine. An hour I make it. That should do it, said Hollis, abstracted and quiet. What happened? Said Hollis a minute later. The rocket blew up. That's all. Rockets do blow up. Which is, where are you going? It looks like I'll hit the moon. It's Earth for me, back to old Mother Earth at 10,000 miles per hour. I'll burn like a match. Hollis thought of it, while the queer abstraction of mind. He seemed to be removed from his body, watching it fall down and down through space, as objective as he had been in regard to the first falling snowflakes of a winter season long gone. The others were silent, thinking of the destiny that had brought them to this falling, and nothing they could do to change it. Even the captain was quiet, for there was no command or plan, he knew, that could put things back together again. Oh, it's a long way down. Oh, it's a long way down. A long, long, long way down, said a voice. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. It's a long way down. Who's that? I don't know. Stimson, I think. Stimson, is that you? It's a long, long way, and I don't like it. Oh, God, I don't like it. Stimson, this is Hollis. Stimson, you hear me? A pause while they felt separate from one another. Stimson, yes, he replied at last. Stimson, take it easy. We're all in the same fix. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be somewhere else. There's a chance we'll be found. I must be, said Stimson. I don't believe this. I don't believe any of this is happening. It's a bad dream, said someone. Shut up, said Hollis. Come and make me, said the voice. It was Applegate. He laughed easily with a similar objectivity. Come and shut me up. Hollis for the first time felt the impossibility of his position. A great anger filled him, for he wanted more than anything at this moment to be able to do something to Applegate. He had wanted for many years to do something, and now it was too late. Applegate was only a telephonic voice, falling, falling, and falling. Now, as if they had discovered the horror, two of the men began to scream. In a nightmare, Hollis saw one of them float by, very near, screaming and screaming. Stop it! The man was almost at his fingertips, screaming insanely. He would never stop. He would go on screaming for 1,000,000 miles, as long as he was in radio range, disturbing all of them, making it impossible for them to talk to one another. Hollis reached out. It was his best way. He made the extra effort and touched the man. He grasped the man's ankle and pulled himself up along the body until he reached the head. The man screamed and clawed frantically like a drowning swimmer. The screaming filled the universe. One way or another, thought Hollis, the moon or earth or meteors will kill him, so why not now? He smashed the man's glass mask with his iron fist. The screaming stopped. He pushed off from the body and let it spin away on its own course, falling. Falling down space, Hollis and the rest of them went in the long, endless dropping and whirling of silence. Hollis, you still there? Hollis did not speak, but felt the rush of heat in his face. This is Applegate again. All right, Applegate, let's talk. We haven't had anything else to do. The captain cut in. That's enough of that. We've got to figure a way out of this. Captain, you don't want to shut up, said Applegate. What? You heard me, Captain. Don't pull your rank on me. You're 10,000 miles away by now, and let's not kid ourselves. As Stimson puts it, it's a long way down. See here, Applegate. Can it? This is a mutiny of one. I have a thing to lose. Your ship was a bad ship, and now you're a bad captain, and I hope you break when you hit the moon. I'm ordering you to stop. Go on. Order me again. Applegate smiled from 10,000 miles. The captain was silent. Applegate continued. Where are we, Hollis? Oh, yes, I remember. I hit you, too. But you know that. You've known it for a long time. Hollis clenched his fists helplessly. I want to tell you something, said Applegate. Make you happy. I was the one who blackballed you with the rocket company 5 years ago. A meteor flashed by. Hollis looked down, and his left hand was gone. Blood sputtered. Suddenly there was no air in his suit. He had had enough air in his lungs to move his right hand over and twist a knob at his left elbow, tightening the joint and sealing the leak. It happened so quickly that he was not surprised. Nothing surprised him any more. The air in his suit came back to normal. In an instant, now the leak was sealed, and the blood that had flowed so swiftly was pressured, and he fastened the knob yet tighter until it made a tourniquet. All this took place in a terrible silence on his part, and the other men chatted. That one man, Lesper, went on and on with his talk about his wife on Mars, his wife on Venus, his wife on Jupiter, his money, his wondrous times, his drunkenness, his gambling, his happiness, on and on while they all fell. Lesper reminisced on the past, happy, while he fell to his death. It was so very odd. Space, thousands of miles of space, and these voices vibrating in the center of it, no one visible at all, and only the radio waves quivering and trying to quicken other men into the emotion. Are you angry, Hollis? No, and he was not. The abstraction had returned, and he was a thing of dull concrete, forever falling nowhere. You wanted to get to the top all your life, Hollis. You always wondered what happened. I put the black mark on you just before I was tossed out myself. That isn't important, said Hollis, and it was not. It was gone. When life is over, it is like a flicker of bright film, an instant on the screen, and all its prejudices and passions condensed and illumined for an instant on space, and before you could cry out, there was a happy day, there was a bad one, there was an evil face, there was a good one, the film burned to a cinder, and the screen went dark. From this outer edge of his life, looking back, there was only one remorse, and that was only that he wished to go on living. Did all dying people feel this way, as if they had never lived? Did life seem that short, indeed, over and done before you took a breath? Did it seem this abrupt and impossible to everyone, not only to himself here now, with a few hours left for him of thought and deliberation? One of the other men, Lesper, was talking. Well, I had me a good time. I had a wife on Mars, Venus, and Jupiter. Each of them had money and treated me swell. I got drunk, and once I gambled away $20,000. But you're here now, thought Hollis. I didn't have any of those things, and when I was living, I was jealous of you, Lesper. When I had another day ahead of me, I envied you your women in space, always wanting them, and jealous of you for having them, and money, and as much happiness as you could have in your own wild way, but now falling here with everything over, I'm not jealous of you anymore, because it's over for you as it is for me. Right now it's like it never was. Hollis craned his face forward and shouted into the telephone. It's all over, Lesper. Silence. It's just as if it never was, Lesper. Who's that? Lesper's faltering voice said. This is Hollis. He was being mean. He felt the meanness, the senseless meaningless of dying. Applegate had hurt him. Now he wanted to hurt another. Applegate and space had both wounded him. You're out here, Lesper. It's all over. It's just as if it had never happened, isn't it? No. When everything's over, it's just like it never happened. Where's your life any better than mine now? No is what counts. Is it any better? Is it? Yes, it's better. How? Because I got my thoughts. I remember, cried Lesper. far away, indignant, holding his memories to his chest with both hands. And he was right. With a feeling of cold water rushing through his head and body, Hollis knew he was right. There were differences between memories and dreams. He had only dreams of things he had wanted to do, while Lespere had memories of things he had done and accomplished, and this knowledge began to pull Hollis apart with a slow, quivering precision. "What good does it to you?" he cried to Lespere. "Now, when a thing's over, it's not good any more. You're no better off than I." "I'm resting easy," said Lespere. "I've